Well, hello, and thank you for joining us today for this critical and timely conversation about crisis fatigue in the workforce. As the CEO of Portico, this is a topic that I hear about every day from our members. Today's webinar is part of the Lutheran Services in America Strength and Service Series, an ongoing virtual gathering of the best minds in our space that is laser focused on examining and tackling unintended consequences and uncertainties in today's climate. Lutheran Services in America launched this series last June, and it has attracted a large audience of more than 300 Lutheran social ministry organizations, all health and human service providers, as well as nonprofits and private sector organizations across the United States. Please check lutheranservices.org for more information on this series, including information on upcoming sessions. We are joined today by Dr. Christine Cauffield, who will discuss the many physiological effects that long-term stress and emotional trauma have on the body, and share tools that leaders can use to recognize and address crisis fatigue for themselves and their employees. Chief Executive Officer of LSF Health Systems, Dr. Cauffield oversees a managing entity comprised of 60 behavioral health care organizations across Northeast and North Central Florida. She has clinical expertise in substance abuse, trauma recovery, grief and loss issues, integrated health, and brain disease and disorders. She has worked extensively with leaders across sectors to address the organizational impact of crisis fatigue and mental health. I am so pleased that she is with us today to share her expertise with us and tools that we can really put to use. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Cauffield.
Oh, thank you so very much, Jeff. It's such a joy to be here with all of you today. Thank you for joining us. I can't say enough about Lutheran Services of America and all the good work that everybody is doing to keep people informed and be right on top of the hottest topics. So thanks to all of you for inviting me to present today. I know that all of us are really reeling from the pandemic and other world events, and we're going to talk more about that as we move forward. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right. So next slide, please. So the American Psychiatric Association survey reports that COVID-19 pandemic is affecting our mental health and well-being. And I know in the state of Florida, we have had a 62% increase in overdose deaths since the pandemic and a 30% increase in suicides. We have been hit with so many issues around COVID-19, not to mention the social and justice issues that we've been faced with, both statewide and nationally, the world events, the political strife. So there has been so much that has been going on in our lives besides just life in general. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that too. Next slide, please. Again, profound, unprecedented times that we're living in. The grief, the anxiety, the isolation that we're all experiencing, the unemployment as a result of state shutting down, as a result of this pandemic, depression, fear, and really crisis fatigue really means there are chronic threats to our safety and well-being, and they truly are. I mean, I don't know one person that is not concerned that they may contract COVID, or their loved ones might, or they already have contracted it. I mean, there's so many things going on in our lives, let alone transitioning from the office space to home, Many of us are now working from home. We're juggling kids. We're juggling perhaps a spouse that's working home too. So there's been so many changes in our lives to adapt to. Next slide, please. We have a lot of anticipatory grief experienced by caregivers that are caring for their loved ones. They have grief due to physical death of loved ones due to COVID. And this has been very impactful on funeral rituals, grief and mourning. So for those of you that have lost loved ones either from COVID or from other diseases, or sudden deaths that have occurred. Again, we've got life going on as we're all trying to wrap our arms around what's happening with world events and with COVID. But if you have lost a loved one, I can tell you that not being able to say goodbye in person with our nursing home shut down, not being able to attend a funeral due to social gathering limitations, you really have some complicated grief to get through with this interruption in our ability to grieve in a healthy manner that our culture embraces. So if you are experiencing a loved one that's about to transition, or you have had a death during all the other things that are happening right now, you have that layer that extremely stressful and is contributing to this crisis fatigue. Next slide, please. So let's look at our health. What's going on with this bombardment of all of these things that we are dealing with? Well, our body is now in almost a chronic state of flight or fight response. Now, our bodies are conditioned to go into fight or flight when we are faced with an emergency, a sudden situation where we have to jump in and maybe save a life, or think quickly and react and save someone else's life, or something that is momentary in the big scheme of things. So our adrenal glands flood our bodies with cortisol and adrenaline, and we're able to either lift the car off the child that's just been hit by the car. We're doing magnificent things due to this huge surge of adrenaline in the fight or flight response. But then the crisis is over and we kind of go back to homeostasis or experience a balance, and we're able to rest and we're able to recoup and we're able to address our exhaustion and then move on. Well, what's happening with the fight or flight response is we're again in almost a constant state of fight or flight. We're just again hit with so many different things: social injustice, the political situation that was very stressful for so many. If we've lost our job, the unemployment, where are we going to be able to get our next meal? Maybe we're losing our home to foreclosure. So this chronicity of staying in this constant fight or flight state is very deleterious to our health. And what happens with this is it certainly makes us prone to depression, weight gain. People are kind of joking about, I'm getting the COVID-19. I've gained 19 pounds. I can't stop running to the fridge and stuffing my face. Insomnia, inability to sleep, or interrupted sleep patterns, which is very harmful to our health. Relationships issues. We're suddenly having a lot of contention with our partners, which is very stressful, and exhaustion and burnout, where we're absolutely feeling like we just can't put one more foot in front of the other. Many people are reporting that they feel like they have lead feet. They're in quicksand. They can't think straight. They can't concentrate. They're almost numb, kind of going through the motions at this point of getting through all of these changes and all of these stressors that are absolutely having a physical impact as well as an emotional and psychological impact on all of us as well. Next slide. Again, the disruption has been monumental. We're working from home. We're trying to find a safe space there. We're juggling homeschooling. Many of the schools shut down. We're isolated from our colleagues, our loved ones, our friends. Maybe we've lost our job as a result of downsizing due to this pandemic. We're overloaded with the media, but the media is having very conflicting stories. We were so hopeful that a vaccine was coming. It was on its way. And once we get the vaccine, then everything is going to go back to normal. And now we're hearing not so much that there's going to be other strains, and we may be facing this for the rest of our lives. And we may be having to get other vaccines for these new strains. And so the hope that maybe kept many of us going and had some light at the end of the tunnel. Now we're listening to the news, and depending upon the news station that you watch and the stories that you read, it's not seeming so hopeful at the moment. And again, because of relationships changes with our partners, we're both working from home, we're both stressed out, we got the kids, it's causing increased tension. That in itself is a major life stressor when we are in a strained relationship with our partner, or we're having problems with our children. And we're going to talk a lot about our kids too, and how they might be acting out and where they're coming from as well. So putting all this together, it's a lot. It's a lot for us as human beings to move forward with. And certainly if we're leaders in our organization and we're expected to continue to be productive, to continue to meet those bottom lines, to continue to serve the clients that are desperately in need of our services, we're also thinking about our staff. How can we keep them shored up? How can we address these issues that we know we're all facing? And how can we be of service to them? How can we be of service to ourselves? Next slide, please. As human beings, we are creatures of habit, and we need a sense of control. And certainly our lives have felt very out of control on so many levels this past year. And when we are feeling out of control, we have a loss of balance in our lives. We've got so much stress and so little joy to balance that out. And so this loss of balance, or homeostasis as it's called, can result in much disequilibrium, which can be felt again on a mental, physical, and spiritual levels. Some of the symptoms are changes in eating patterns. Many of us are not thinking about eating healthy. We're looking for those comfort foods. We're eating the pasta. We're eating the donuts, anything to kind of self-medicate to get through this. I talked about the sleep, the lack of sleep, the insomnia, the concentration difficulties, worsening of chronic health problems. So if you happen to have a chronic health condition, as we're going through this, many people are experiencing worsening symptoms because the immune system is depressed due to this huge amount of cortisol surging through our system, the fight or flight syndrome, etc. And a lot of us are turning to unhealthy coping mechanisms such as alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. In fact, the latest statistic shows that there has been a 55% increase in alcohol sales since this pandemic started. Now, what we know about alcohol is a depressant. So you might have a momentary high, a few laughs, but once that alcohol wears off, then what happens? We crash into a depression. So we're already, many of us, feeling depressed. Now we're adding insult to injury by using a substance that worsens our depression. Many of us are very anxious, worried about who's going to get COVID next, and am I going to lose my job? And you know, will I still have health benefits? And where am I going to live next? And is my child going to be sick? And all these worries and fears. And we're also grieving. We're grieving the loss of our normal, our past normal, whatever that looked like. Going to work from 9 to 5, getting together with friends for dinner, being around the conference table with our colleagues who we respect and we really enjoy. And all that's gone now. And so we're grieving. And if you know anything about grief, it's exhausting. The grief process is exhausting. And so no wonder many of us feel like, oh my goodness, we can hardly pull ourselves out of bed in the morning. We can hardly mobilize because so much is going on, including grief. Next slide, please. The groups that are most at risk for acute stress responses include the elderly. We think about our elder loved ones that are isolated, that are in nursing homes that we can't visit. Think about the ones that are in the hospital that we can't visit. Or we are afraid to visit our grandma who still lives at home because we don't want to expose her to potential COVID. And so the elderly are greatly at risk for deleterious health effects due to the isolation. Those with chronic disease are at risk. Children and teens. Teen suicides have skyrocketed. We have more children being Baker Acted now or involuntarily placed, we call it Baker Act in Florida, than ever before. Our healthcare providers that are witnessing the struggles, people that are so deathly ill, they lose their patients. They're very, very high risk. And so are our first responders that are responding to people, wheeling them out in gurneys, trying to save them in the ambulances. These people in particular are most at risk for serious mental health and physical health care challenges. So what can we do to shore up our own mental health? And, we often hear about when the flight attendants on the plane say, grab and put the oxygen mask on yourself first and then on your loved ones. Sometimes it seems and feels a little trite, but it couldn't be farther from the truth. We have to put our own oxygen mask on. We're leaders. We are managing people. We are serving populations that are suffering, that need us now more than ever before. And so how do we put masks on ourselves first? What are some of the coping strategies that we can do to help ourselves and pass these along to help our staff? Well, the first is take breaks from the media, including social media. Again, I'm not saying be a hermit and never know what's going on in the world, but it's not necessary to keep CNN on 24/7. So give yourself breaks. Say, I'm going to watch the morning news, my favorite morning news show, for a half an hour, and maybe I'll turn on the evening news at night. Or maybe if I'm a Facebook fan, I'll limit my time on Facebook now because there's so much different opinions and articles and things that are being posted that really are bombarding us. So take a break. Take deep breaths. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Why is that? Why do we need to focus on breathing? Because when we are in the fight or flight syndrome, when we are in that stress response, we are shallow breathing. We are not taking deep breaths. And again, we're in this chronic state. And so we're not, and we probably don't even realize it, but we're not breathing appropriately. So that's why you hear it's so important to breathe. Take deep breaths in, hold, and exhale slowly. And the combination could be 5, bring a deep breath in, hold 5 seconds, exhale out 8 seconds. Find your own rhythm, but the exhale is longer than the inhale. And we do that repeatedly. And that will really lower our anxiety and also get that blood circulating, the oxygen circulating through our bodies. Because again, we're compromised, our immune system's compromised when we have these stress responses. We want to stretch and exercise regularly. Why? Because most of us are having Zoom fatigue. We are sitting at our desk or in our home office and we're watching that Zoom call and we're participating in Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call, and we're not walking around. We're not getting up and stretching. And again, so important to keep that body moving, keep the joints regularly exercising, because people are complaining about headaches, neck aches, back aches, and so we need to keep moving. Many people find meditation and staying in the present moment very helpful, because when we're anxious, we tend to be thinking about all the catastrophes that can happen or might happen or could happen. And we're projecting out in the future, or we're thinking about the past, and we're not staying in the present moment. And there's some great apps out there. One is Headspace. There's many others that can guide us through, keep us in the present moment, meditate, and give our brains a rest from all this bombardment of what we've been experiencing. Mind your thoughts. You know, again, these catastrophic thinking is very damaging to us, because our minds, our bodies don't really know whether it's happening or not. So you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh my God, I think I have a symptom. I think I might have COVID. I just coughed. Oh, and your body is saying, uh-oh, fight or flight. You're dying. I'm going to jump in. And so these catastrophic thoughts are keeping us all charged up, and we need to pull it down. We need to confront those thoughts. That was just a cough. Am I really dying right now? I've got to calm myself down. It's time to take a stretch break. I'm going to put my headphones on and I'm going to listen to a guided meditation, or I'm going to listen to soothing music, or I'm going to take a little break and take a warm shower to calm me down. We've got to mind our thoughts, and we need to eat healthy meals. Everything's out of balance right now. We don't want our diet to be included in that mix. I know it's tempting to grab those carbs, because those carbs do lower the stress level, just like smoking does, lowers the autonomic nervous system. But those are unhealthy coping mechanisms. So we've got to keep as much balance as we can in our lives, including healthy foods. Next slide, please. So we need to get plenty of sleep. We need to avoid alcohol and drugs, and we need to factor in joy every single day. I know that's a big ask, but again, we're creatures of habit, and we strive. Every cell in our body strives for homeostasis or balance. So we're pretty out of balance right now with work, kids, spouse, partner, all the other life events that are occurring in our lives on top of everything else. We've got to factor in joy, whatever that means to you, whether it's painting, gardening, riding a bike, reading, whatever joy means for you. We've got to put it on our schedule. We literally have to put it on our schedule to balance out all of the stress that many of us are facing. We need to connect connect and reconnect. And I know when individuals are having depression, it's very easy to isolate. It's like a big effort to even pick up the phone and call your friend or get on a FaceTime call. But it's now more than ever, it's really important to connect, and reconnect, because remember the balance. We're isolated now. We're not connecting with the outside world much. So we need to bring that in to our lives again, balance out what's happening, bring the balance in, and connect with one another. It's okay to, even if you're connecting, just talk about, boy, I'm really struggling. How about you? How are you coping? Any ideas for me? I'm really struggling with my child that seems to be regressing. He's 5 years old and he's down on the floor like a 2-year-old throwing a temper tantrum. Is that happening with you? Or connecting to people that you haven't connected with in a long time. Maybe you go through your college or high school yearbook and you say, you know, I've always thought about connecting with Mary and I've been meaning to do that, but I just haven't. Now's the perfect time to do that. It's really, really important. And we're going to talk about the connection that we need to have with our staff now more than ever, and how they need to be connecting with their colleagues and with you now more than ever. And go outside. Studies show that just 10 minutes in nature, outside, breathing fresh air, increases those feel-good hormones in our brains, the serotonin, the dopamine. Just 10 minutes increases those two very important feel-good hormones in our brains. So you can still work at home, but you can leave the computer for 10 minutes and walk around the block, walk around your house, take a ride up to the park, whatever you need to do, but get out at least 10 minutes a day. And if you can, 10 minutes an hour. Next slide, please. Working from home tips. So how do we make this as palatable as possible? Well, we want to create that structure and routine to our daily lives. Remember, we're creatures of habit. So if you used to wake up every day at 7, take your shower at 7:30, get dressed and ready to go for work at 8, do that. Keep that structure, keep that routine. And 5 o'clock, shut down that computer. I'm not working anymore. I know I'm bored maybe, and it's tempting to answer emails, but you know what? We want that routine. We want to have a sense of control of our daily life. Developing a schedule, again, it's predictable and it lowers our anxiety. And we want to create a special place for workspace, not in your bedroom. Not in your bedroom, because we're struggling with sleep right now. We want to keep that bedroom sacred space, that we know that when we go to bed, we're calm, we're relaxed. And if we're working in our bedroom, then the bedroom represents work and worry and deadlines and assignments. And so we don't want to be working in our bedroom. And we want to shower and dress, as I said, set daily work goals. That helps us feel accomplished at the end of the day, keep us focused on where I am on my list of my goals today. And again, factor in the breaks. Go outside. Next slide, please. So if you're homeschooling, if you're caring for kids at home, same situation. You need to develop a daily schedule for them. Okay, it's bath time now. Okay, it's time now to get on our calls with our teacher. And so from 9 to 10, we're going to be with our Spanish teacher. Or if you're the Spanish teacher, we're going to study Spanish now. Develop that daily schedule, and you need to create a specific school and or play space for your kids, just like we need our special separate space for our workspace. And we also need to be modeling healthy coping strategies for our kids, because our kids are scared. Their lives have been disrupted as well. They're missing their friends and playmates. They can't have the play dates they used to. They miss running out on the playground and having fun. They don't like, being home so much, just like you don't really like being home so much. And so we have to model healthy coping strategies, and let them know that, you know what, this is a tough time, but we're going to get through this. And you might be falling apart inside, but if at all possible, you keep that from your kids. You want to model hope. You want to model that, hey, we're in this together and we're going to make this fun. And isn't it great that we can have more one-on-one time now? And gee, we're watching a lot of fun movies together, and whatever you can do to reframe it, and then get the help that you need to cope with this through a trusted counselor, your best friend, the EAP at work, wherever you have a safe space to sound off. But for your kids, as much as possible, create that calm, centered approach with them. And, I have a lot of people saying, well, I'm so worried. I don't think, I don't know math that well. And I know I'm not teaching my kids, and they're going to be behind when they finally do go to school, if they ever do. And I'm a terrible teacher and so on. I said, you know what the most important thing is right now? Maintaining your relationship with that child, being there for your child, modeling coping strategies, coping healthy behaviors, and just creating a safe space. They'll catch up with the reading, writing, and arithmetic. The most important thing now, maintain that healthy relationship. Again, regression may occur with your kids. You might see your 5-year-old suddenly sucking his thumb. You might see, your 10-year-old, whining and clinging as if he or she were 5. Temper tantrums, out of sorts, acting out behavior, screaming, yelling, behavior changes that you've never seen before. And remember, kids, depending upon the age and where they are developmentally and their progression in life, they can't articulate what's going on, depending upon their stage of growth. They can't say, gosh, this is really stressful for me. I'm really missing my friends. I really hate being at home. But they act out their feelings. And is it tough? Is it tough to manage this on top of everything else you're managing? You bet it is. But knowing that this is normal behavior under the very abnormal circumstances that we all are experiencing. Next slide, please. Some of the things that I want to wrap up, and we're going to wrap up with other things too, especially how you can help your staff. But there is a great book, and I'm sure many of you have read it, but if you haven't, it's an oldie but a goodie, and it's called A Man's Search for Meaning. And this book was written by a psychiatrist that survived the concentration camp. And so what he did to keep his sanity, so to speak, is he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to observe, because this is what I do in my profession. I observe human behavior. So I'm going to observe what's going on here in this concentration camp. I'm going to observe human behavior. And so one of the things that he observed was when the guard might throw a little bitty crust of bread over the fence, some people would grab that crust and say, oh, look, I can break this up into 12 pieces so more of us can have something. And some people would grab it and run away and say, it's mine, it's mine. And some people would be saying, you know what? We're going to escape. I'm busy working on an escape plan now because we're going to get out of here. And so that's what I'm working on. And some people would say there's no hope. You're all foolish. And what he learned from that experience is that if you can find the meaning in suffering, if you can find some meaning It's going to help you manage better. It's going to help you get through this. And so you might be thinking, well, what growth am I experiencing? What's the meaning of all of this? Well, you know what? Maybe you learned that you have a lot more patience than you ever imagined you had. Maybe you learned that your partner, who you never thought had it in him or her in it to step up to the plate and really be there, suddenly was able to and help you. Or maybe you learn that, you know what? I don't think this relationship is at a good place. And I think that this has really shown us that it's time now to get that couples counseling that we never received. Or maybe you learned that you met some neighbors that you never had the chance because you were always so busy, but now you've become close friends. So there's always something that we can glean from suffering. And so if you can try to find meaning, if you can try to find growth that you've experienced as a result of dealing with all these issues, that's going to really help with resiliency. Focus on gratitude. And there are studies that show that if you keep a gratitude journal every day and just write down 3 things you're grateful for that day. You're grateful that the sun is shining. You're grateful that you have food in your pantry. You're grateful that your child didn't act out today. Whatever those 3 things are, they don't have to be monumental. Just write them down. And they say at the end of 2 weeks, just keeping a gratitude journal will literally alter the structures in your brain and flood more of those hormones, those feel-good serotonin, dopamine into the brain and be able to help you change and cope better. Again, stay grounded, stay in the moment, meditate, stay present. And the power of the pen. Many people are keeping a journal. They find that it's very helpful to get their feelings out. Maybe you want to keep a feelings journal. You know, today I felt like I was really losing it. It was all I could do not to scream at the top of my lungs at my boss, or whatever your feelings are. Or maybe it's just a journal of the day. You know, today was an interesting day. I did this, 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 and this. Getting those feelings out, the power of the pen, again, is very therapeutic. It's almost like mindfulness. We don't want to bottle up those emotions. We don't want to bottle up the angst, the anger, the frustration. Get it out. Get it out, the power of the pen. And for many of us, although most people now are saying, I'm busier now more than ever. I am working harder than I've ever worked before. But for those that find that you have some time on the weekends, you know, and you used to say, you know, if I had more time, I'd take up painting. Or if I had more time, I'd clean out my garage. Or if I had more time, I'd finish my book. Well, do those things. Put it down as a goal. I've got some time now. This would bring me joy. This would give me satisfaction. I'm going to do it. And also know you're not alone. What you all are feeling, what we're all feeling, is normal. It's normal to feel burnt out. It's normal to feel exhausted. It's normal to feel not very hopeful. Whatever you're experiencing, if you're depressed, if you're feeling anxiety, those are normal reactions to very abnormal times that we're living in. Next slide, please. Here's some of my favorite quotes. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. It's about minding your mind, minding those thoughts. The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. The whole future lies as uncertainty. So live immediately. Stay in the present. And finally, freedom and happiness are won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. And I have a lot of people that are practicing the AA Serenity Prayer. Give me strength to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Next slide, please. So how are we going to best help our staff? Well, the first thing is take care of you. Because if you're an empty well, if your vessel is half full, you're not going to have a lot to really help your staff. And so again, practice what you're going to be preaching to your team. And one thing that we can do is show appreciation. And we want to normalize that we know this is a tough time and it's a struggle. And by gosh, you all are accomplishing all of your performance goals, and our organization is helping so many people thanks to you. We're constantly showing appreciation through emails, through Zoom calls that you have. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And you also want to let them know that you want to let them know that there's individual help for everybody. We've got a great employee assistance program. Our insurance covers 10 sessions with a counselor, and who doesn't need extra support right now? So you're normalizing the situation. You're normalizing that it's okay to reach out for help right now. In fact, it's a sign of health to reach out and get help when you know you're struggling. You want to involve your staff as much as possible in decision making. So, hey, listen, we're thinking about going after a new grant, and it's addressing child welfare issues. And we really need your input on how you think we might best approach this grant. So all of you are experts, and let's talk about it. I'm going to set up a Zoom call so we can tell you about this grant opportunity, and then I'd like your input on how we move forward to make this a really best practice program. We want to entrust them again with new responsibilities. We trust you. We know you can do it. We know as managers that, things are really difficult right now. And so maybe a new challenge, a new responsibility would break that set and help individuals feel more empowered, more excited about something new that they can focus on, they can work on. And designate time and space for team bonding. I set up weekly calls with the team, and we have them on Zoom, and some of them are just strictly check-in, hi everybody, isn't it great to see everybody here? One time I usually start it with a question or a theme, and so I said, just great to see everybody's faces, and everybody feels the same way. They're all reporting, oh yes, hi Sue, I haven't seen you in so long. And then I say, so let's start by talking about one thing you're grateful for today. And you would be surprised what you learn about what your staff is going through that you didn't know. For example, one of our team members' husband was on overseas on a work assignment, and he could not get back, and he was gone for months. And she was having a lot of crisis situations going on without that support. And so when she shared, well, I'm so grateful that I heard that he might be home in 2 more months. Well, everybody was shocked that she was going through that. So you learn a lot about what your team is going through, and they have a safe space to share it, and they feel not so alone. So designate that time and just to check in. Hey, missing all of your faces. And so we're going to take a 15-minute check-in or half-hour check-in just to let everybody get together. Next slide, please. You need to let them know what your mental health benefits are. Again, normalize that. We have a great employee assistance program, or our insurance allows us unlimited visits or 10 free visits or whatever it is. Publicize that, push it out in an email, keep that message going frequently. And also bring in webinars on self-care. Have a webinar like this for your staff on, again, what did we do today? We explained the physical effects of what's going on within our bodies during this crisis, that it's normal to feel all of these different things. The weight gain has been explained, the breathing, et cetera, et cetera. And what we're doing is we're incentivizing wellness activities. So we have offered a stipend to everyone to join a gym or join a yoga class or whatever's open that they can attend, or to get a series on their TV on yoga classes, or whatever the individual likes to do. We want to incentivize them to engage in wellness activities. And that's something you can do when you have the whole team together, is say, listen, let's check in and see how we're doing with our wellness activities. Did anybody meet the challenge of 10,000 steps a day? And, whatever those wellness activities that you want to push out. Everybody drink 8 glasses of water a day. Who did, who didn't, what can we do? That kind of thing. And provide a list of resources so that people can tap into self-help apps and self-help meditations and self-help websites. There is a great website called selfcare.com, and or is it selfcare.org? I can get that to you. But that is a great website. They have podcasts, they have TED Talks, and it's all centered around how to take good care of yourself as we're going through this. And they're very inspiring. And again, reduce the ambiguity for your staff by providing daily and weekly goals. Check in with them. Hey, how you doing? That'll tell you volumes. If you have a superstar that's always, working 110% and suddenly really falling down and not able to make the daily goals that you both agreed upon, then it's an opportunity to say, I hear you, boy, we're all struggling. What can I do to support you? What can I do to help you get out of that funk? And again, reiterate that there are resources for that individual to tap into. And I'm going to pause now and see if there are any questions. It's a lot of information.
Well, Dr. Cauffield, that is a lot of information, but you gave us more than just information. You gave us good reasons for hope. So thank you. And you did such an amazing job that I don't even see any questions in the chat. So we really appreciate you giving us these practical tools for today. Maybe I will just ask you one question before we wrap up.
Sure.
What's the first thing that managers and supervisors can do today to help their frontline staff that is experiencing crisis fatigue?
Yeah. Well, I've already said, take care of yourself first. Put the oxygen mask on so you have the strength and energy to manage your folks that are struggling. But to give them resources. Keep connected to them. Normalize. Let them know that they aren't alone and that we're all in it together and we're going to get through this. I think it's so important to continue that sense of community with your teams. Let them see one another through those Zoom calls. One thing that I do is I send out a little email blast of maybe an inspiring quote that I read Hi team, thinking of you today, thought you might enjoy this, or this provided me, some hope or some cheer or some joy, or, just keep the connection and let them know that you're there and everybody's going to be okay.
Great. How long does it take to recover from burnout? Is it better done in steps daily or all at once through time away?
That's a great question, because we have a lot of people that are reporting burnout. And when people are burnout, just one statistic that's really troubling is that people that are burnout, about 45% of them seriously consider or leave their profession, their current profession. And so that's a symptom of burnout. And so what we want to do is, again, shore individuals up daily, start practicing the self-care, start normalizing and educating what burnout looks like, what to expect with burnout, and ways to cope and get through that burnout, because it's not a time to make big decisions when we are burnt out, because we are burnt out physically, we are burnt out mentally, many of us are burnt out spiritually, and we're just empty. And so sometimes we're not really thinking as well as we could if we had our tank filled up. So as much as on a daily basis we can fill ourselves up, and yes, if you can get away now, absolutely, and take a vacation, and that's what's needed, that's putting your oxygen mask on you first.
Great.
So it's okay to take a vacation, or it's okay to tag team with your executive team. Say, look, I got to get out of here. So I'm going to take next week off. You cover for me, then you take the following week off. Because absolutely, because many people will report, I can't tell you the last time I've taken a vacation. Well, that's not good. We need to fill our tanks up.
Okay, one last question, and then we're going to wrap up. Some folks talk about COVID brain, and wondered if you see people having a hard time remembering things or losing their common sense. I think you kind of mentioned something along those lines about making decisions. We're in this mode.
There is absolutely COVID brain going on, and a lot of that can be attributed to the depression. We're grieving, right? We're grieving, which is normal. And we're having depression about our losses, about what's going on in the world, about our current living situation. There's a lot of things that that many are suffering depression from. And so depression can actually mimic dementia. In fact, they call it pseudo dementia. And so I have a lot of people saying, I swear to you, I'm getting Alzheimer's. I promise you, there's been a marked change in my memory. I can't remember anything. I'm missing calls. I'm missing deadlines. And that is for a variety of reasons, okay? We're not breathing, okay? So we're having some physiological issues that are contributing to that. We're in this chronic fight or flight. We've got the emotional stuff going on. We've got our life going on. We've got depression. We've got anxiety. So yes, memory issues right along with that, absolutely. But the good news is, for most of us, this is attributable to chronic fatigue, crisis fatigue, COVID fatigue, and this will lift. And it will lift sooner than later, especially if we do self-care. And I know that's a big ask, because again, many are saying, don't ask me to walk around the block. I can barely walk to my mailbox. You don't understand. And it's understandable how we're feeling. We've got to, if at all possible, push ourselves, employ some of these self-care strategies so that we can lift that fog. We can lift that depression, And for some of us, it includes counseling and maybe time for an antidepressant, some
Yeah.
medication, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's not forever.
Yep.
It's
Thank you.
okay.
Well, you have certainly gotten our attention about paying our attention to these matters, and thank you so much for the practical tools that we can use. Just a preview for the next Lutheran Services in America Strength and Services Series webinar is on Wednesday, March 10th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Reading the Tea Leaves, Fortune Telling an Uncertain Future for Senior Services. Will feature Andy Ediburn with Premier Incorporated. Andy has more than 20 years of healthcare consulting experience and will give an overview of current market trends and offer methods for senior services providers to think about the future. More information is in the chat box right now, including the link to register. And watch your email for a follow-up with resources that you can put to use right now. Again, thank you, Dr. Cauffield. Thank you, Lutheran Services in America, for putting this together, and have a great rest of your day, and look forward to seeing you all on March 10th or before. God bless you all.
Thank you.